Hey y'all, it's Jordyn Swingle with Let's Just Be Real. In a world where we can put a spin and a filter on everything, this podcast is going to be raw and honest about all the things. And I do mean all the things. So, let's get to it.
It's because they know I have some tea. That boy better be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, you don't get to turn your phone off. You know what I mean? But also, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I love my people are probably looking for me right now. Yeah. Well, hi, y'all. Are you pumped to be here? Because I'm pumped. And today's episode is a real treat and a real tell-all. Okay, so buckle up and get ready. I have a sweet friend here who is a firefighter wife and a mama, and she's a teacher, and she actually loves teaching, which is a gift. So we're going to talk about all the things today with my friend Brittany Rios. Hello.
Hello.
I'm excited to be here. I didn't tell you this beforehand, but I'm going to tell you now that I had posted on Instagram and asked for people to nominate people to be on the podcast, and 3 different people put your name in the box.
Oh.
So you're HEB royalty. It's because they know I have some tea. Yeah, girl, we're going to spill that tea today. We're going to spill that tea. But we're going to leave names and dates and such out for anonymity purposes, but we'll get to the fun stuff. I want them to know who you are, and I say this in every podcast. It's very important for me for them to understand you as a person, because I get the joy of knowing you, but all these people listening might not know you, and I want to paint the full picture, not just the juicy parts, you know?
Yes.
So we know each other from our first church. The first church I ever went to was First Baptist Hurst.
Me too.
Yeah. Wait, that was the first church you ever went to?
Well, I went to a church in Irving when I was really little, but as far as being involved in Sunday school and stuff like that, it was First Hurst.
Yeah. We were both so involved.
Yes.
That was such an easy time to be involved, I feel like.
In the youth group. I feel like the youth group there at the time was
popping.
Yeah.
It was so great. They did such a good job at pouring into us at that age. And so that's where we met initially. Your sweet dad was big and involved there and always loud and gave me so much crap. And so I initially bonded with him and then got to know you later on in life. But
y'all's personalities.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big time. So talk about growing up in HEB, because we're from HEB. For those of you who are listening, is Hurst, Euless, and Bedford. And those are like our stomping grounds. And we know those streets by the back of our hands. But it's like a small town feel, but there's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're all intertwined.
It's sick. Yeah. Truly. Like when we start to trace back the relationships and friendships, I'm like, oh my God, we've all just been circling around one another for years.
Yes, because I remember we really didn't become super close until after college.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of getting in the friend group, and I was so nervous because I knew there would be so many people. And then I got there and go, wait, I know you and you and you from all different avenues. And so
random.
Yeah.
It's so weird. But I love that because we do have years and years of commonality and stuff. So tell us about your family dynamic growing up. You have a sister.
Yes, I have a sister. I feel like I grew up in the typical household textbook
family.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're my mom, dad, sister, born and raised. And my mom is still in the same house that I was raised in.
That was the same house you lived in as a kid?
Yes.
I don't know why I thought y'all had moved. That's insane.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
They lived in Grand Prairie until I was 2, and then they've been on Timberview ever since.
I love it.
So I grew up, it was pretty to me it was normal. I was the goody two shoes. We were the goody two shoes family, super involved in church. Every Wednesday, every Sunday, I feel like everybody kind of knew who we were at church.
Your dad also was extremely tall and extremely loud.
Yeah.
So when he made an entrance into a room, you knew who was here. Yeah.
Yeah. And he wanted to make sure that I knew he was there.
Yeah.
And so, my elementary school, middle school was what I would call boring. But now looking back in hindsight, I'm like, boring is good.
Mm-hmm. Uneventful, we love.
Yeah. But at the time, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
And then middle school, I started going to church camps and getting to know people and hearing people's testimonies. I even heard my dad's testimony, and I vividly remember praying to God, and I was like, so regret this prayer. And I was like, I don't have that. I was just the girl who grew up in church. I became a Christian at VBS. I don't have a story. I don't have where people are feeling God. Like, I didn't have that. And I remember just praying, like, give me my own story. And boy, did he. He goes, buckle up.
Yeah.
Because here we go.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a lot that leads up to this pivotal moment in your life. But let's start first with the biggest loss that you endured was losing your dad.
Yeah. And so that all started really shortly after that prayer. So a little backstory. When my dad was a senior in high school, he was in an accident and he was paralyzed from his head down or his neck down on the right side of his body. And he was in a coma for several months. And so in that, he was given a lot of blood transfusions and had brain surgery.
Yeah.
And that was before they tested blood when they gave blood transfusions. So he contracted hepatitis C from one of the blood transfusions.
Yeah.
And so he had hepatitis C, basically, his whole life, my whole life.
Did they just treat it like orally with a pill or something? Or
they
like...
really just monitored it at that point.
Okay.
And then he would go in once a year and get his levels checked. And I really don't know all the details.
Yeah.
I just knew, like...
Also, what a great dad to, like, not put that burden on your family and, like, really manage that on his own and prevent y'all from walking in that fear.
Yeah, like, I had no idea what it was. All I knew is that if he cuts himself, you don't touch it. But I just thought that's what,
Yeah, you don't touch blood to begin with.
Right, I just thought that in general. I didn't really realize the magnitude of why. And so it really didn't start affecting him until I was in high school. And so they set us down. His numbers had gotten too low because, for those who don't know, hepatitis C affects your liver. So trying to think. So they set us down and said it had gotten bad enough to where he'd be put on the liver transplant list. And so that's when, that's like where my memories of that start.
Yeah, that season.
Yeah. So I really don't remember much before that.
Yeah.
And, once you get to that point, you have to be pretty sick.
Yeah.
And my whole life, because of his accident, he would have back surgeries and neck surgery. So at the time, I was like, oh, this is just another
thing that we're going to do.
Right. But he never got better from it. And for you to have a transplant, you have to be pretty healthy otherwise besides, that, so that it doesn't reject. And because of all of his other surgeries and things like that, he just wasn't...
His body was too frail.
Yeah. And so we learned that he wasn't going to get a transplant. So at that point, you just kind of wait.
Yeah.
And I think that, and so at that point, I was 20. And so I was out of high school. And so really what you choose to share on Facebook at the time, I think, I don't even know if Instagram was there. That's all that people knew. So really just my best friend at the time, my boyfriend at the time, and my immediate family, no one knew the depths of it.
Which is also so triggering and traumatizing. I can tell you now as an adult watching you walk through it, and also like the other side of it is like that waiting period wreaked havoc on your family and on you emotionally of like waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right. Because you really, it was just back and forth because sometimes it would be fine and sometimes not. And then the last year, I was 21 and had a dad in a nursing home for a year. And so that's kind of what my life was like.
Yeah.
And I chose to put, college on hold. I wasn't much of the college studious person anyways. And so I chose to put that on hold. And so, but I don't regret it. I was there every, I'd go to work, I'd go there. And so I feel like that gave me a lot of closure. Like that's been a lot of my healing is that
time that you had.
Yeah.
And we say that he was big personality, but like he just was big because he also loved people so well. And it was really sad the day that I learned that when he passed, because I was like, oh my God, like he was such a pillar, not only in our church, but like in the youth group, he was such a safe place for people to come and like talk to him. And like, it was just great. Like he was so trusted.
Yeah.
So
and I don't think I realized that until he passed away when
the impact.
people, Yeah. And I struggled a long time being angry because he was, had such faith, but even the whole time through him being like so sick, he never, at least that I saw.
Right. He never wavered.
Yeah. And sometimes I would see him like he was angry, but his faith never wavered. And I think that like, that's why I've always come back to the Lord because, but yeah. And so then on Christmas Day in 2012, he passed away. And
which is cruel in and of itself.
Yeah. And I have a lot of people say that. And I think at first I was like, really? But we like knew, all of us. Like I remember my mom, my sister, like we know this is when he's going to choose.
Really?
Like, yes. And like, so Pastor Jeff at First Hearst, my dad knew that like at funerals and stuff that he reads the person's Bible if they have one. And my dad always wrote in his Bible and things like that. And in the back of it, it said like, I hope that the day I go, because he knew.
Yeah.
He was like, I hope the day that I go is about the Lord. And so how can you be mad?
I never heard that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It still gives me goosies.
That's a gift though, because that's something that he longed for and the Lord answered that prayer on his behalf. And it sucks that it's that day, that reminder, but also like what a sweet reminder that the Lord answered your dad's request. Like if I have to go, let it be on a day that's focused on you.
Yeah.
Wow. That just speaks to the character of that man. Yeah. He was incredible. So incredible.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So that was, still the hardest thing that I've ever walked through. But I'm thankful I had such a present dad.
Yeah.
And now having, a husband that I know is going to be the same.
Yeah. So like heals something in you to watch your husband be the dad that you needed. Yeah. And I mean, I talk about that with Dylan all the time about, I lost my dad at 7 and those years after were really difficult to go as a girl without a dad. But there's so many moments that even when you lose your dad in your 20s, there's moments that you're like, man, I would give anything for you to be here, Yeah. And watching your husband fulfill that role for your kids is like, wow, okay, they're getting, even if I didn't have it, I'm so thankful that they do,
Yes. And I know, like, sometimes, like, I feel like I healed so much and then the grief just overwhelms, especially like having your own kids.
Oh, yeah.
And,
your wedding day my wedding day was really emotionally difficult. Like, and, and my mom was so wonderful to pick up the slack as yours was, but there's always going to be that presence of like, he should be here, right? He should be here. And that's part of living in a fallen world and longing for heaven of like, I can't wait until we're reunited. I long for that. That gives me joy and hope to look forward to heaven,
Yeah.
So, okay, great. So you experienced that horrible loss and you were dating someone at the time. That relationship ended. And then you start dating someone else who had been present and we had known him and he'd been around in different circles and stuff. But you start dating this person shortly after your dad passes.
It was a couple of years. It was probably like 3 years, but we were friends at the time. Yeah. So he had known that whole struggle. Like he, and I think I clung to that a lot. That
trauma bond, baby.
Yeah. And, so he knew he was there. He also knew my past relationships. We were just friends.
Yeah.
But then we didn't start dating until a couple years later.
Okay. So you guys started dating at the same time, like shortly after y'all start dating is when you started coming around, or a couple years in. How long had y'all been together when you started hanging out with us?
I think it was like right at the beginning because I call her the coffee queen. I started going to coffee with Jenna.
Yes. Everybody's lived in by Jenna.
Yeah, somehow
Jenna's faithful friend, man.
I don't even know. She just like, it was Facebook and we started going.
She's the OG DM slatter. I'm not kidding.
Yes. Yeah. And at that time, my other relationship was on the rocks, ending, and she really encouraged me to like, there's a whole nother world of people who you need to surround yourself with, because I was not around believers. Even though I was a believer, I was still like kind of struggling with the loss of my dad and getting close to the Lord again. But I knew that's what I needed. And so when I officially ended that relationship is when I started coming
and hanging. You came to First Baptist Euless, because at that time we were at First Baptist Euless, who had a really great young adults ministry, and we were all
Yes.
super involved there. Okay, so
And then Bachelor Mondays started.
oh yes, and then we all started.
And I think that's when I started,
paradox.
him and I started dating.
Okay, so we
During
were
that.
there for
From the beginning.
from the beginning. That's
Yeah.
wild because I guess I blocked
It kind
out
of-
on purpose, but
It kind of all blends together.
yes, it does.
Yeah.
But and the only reason that we're telling this story is because I believe that there are other women who were in similar situations that you were in and need to hear it. And God has used all those things for your good and his glory. And so I want to preface that. Like, this is a story that involves 2 people and 3 people, actually. And it's challenging and it's painful to relive it. Even as your friend, it's painful to relive it. But it also is necessary because that prompted you into the place of where you're at now. And it's a beautiful depiction of God taking something that was awful and the enemy intended to harm you. That Genesis 50:20 is one of my favorite verses, and I think that this sums up the story. So I want to put that out there first. It says, "What the enemy intended for my harm, God used for my good and the salvation of many." And so I'm believing that this story is going to draw people in and help them understand that even in the most hopeless of situations, that God prevails, right?
Yes.
So you start dating this guy. You start getting really heavily involved at our church. You're hanging out with us all the time. Like, it was such a sweet season. We were all super excited for you. You guys get engaged.
Yes.
So we were all really involved in that. It was it was a beautiful proposal under false pretenses.
Yes.
So
And I think I do want to say too that I think I made some mistakes there, if I'm honest, of I wanted it so badly. And I did think that that was the person that I was supposed to be with.
yeah.
But I think I rushed it. I think I pushed for it to be rushed a little more than I probably should have.
Yeah.
And so I want to just preface that I wasn't, I made mistakes too.
Yeah.
But,
Takes 2 to tango.
and this is in no means.
But I also think, like we've talked about, like, there were red flags that you looked past. And I think sometimes as women, we make accommodations for people when we feel that we don't necessarily deserve more. And I think at that time, you were still reeling with the loss of your dad. Your other relationship had been really tumultuous and was not healthy either. And you were still reeling with that. And like, then you enter into this new relationship with someone that you trusted. And I think that we also just make accommodations for people. When we want to see the good, we will see it.
Yeah, I wanted to believe the good, and I wanted to believe that, I didn't think that would happen. I chose to put a blind eye to things because I so badly wanted to be wanted.
You wanted love. Yeah.
And I wanted to feel like I was enough. And I guess subconsciously felt like if I, give in to these red flags, then, the worst is going to happen. I don't know. But
I think everyone can empathize with that. We all, that is at our core of who we are. Like, we want to feel accepted. We want to be loved. We want to feel like we're enough. And sometimes, and there's also this narrative of like, nobody's perfect, right?
Right.
And that's true. But there are people that, are actively trying to do better and people that are actively trying to hide not doing better. So you start dating, you get engaged. And when did you get engaged? What month did you get engaged?
It was in the summer.
Wasn't it like May or June? Or no, July? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
But like a full year later is the wedding, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys get engaged. You like pretty quickly after that start premarital counseling, right? Process planning, everything's going great. I have a very vivid memory of us sitting at my dining room table in November.
You even remembered that it was November.
I remember because I was like, it was like halfway through the process of y'all planning your wedding.
And I had not told anybody else that I was feeling that way.
I will say that I have a unique gift of drawing it out of people. Like,
yes.
I feel like there's
But
been many
you
times
also
in
offer
our
a safe
friendship.
place.
Yes.
I knew I could come.
Yeah, and talk.
Yeah.
Without
But
judgment.
I also knew you're probably going to ask me hard questions.
Yeah.
You did.
I did. And there was a lot of things that we talked about that day that gave me really big concern. And my my walls went up pretty quickly after that with that person, just because I was like, first of all, I think I felt very protective of you because of our commonality in losing our dad. And I know that the vulnerability that causes in women, and I'm like, don't you dare play on that vulnerability. I'll mess you up. And so when I started to see behaviors and patterns as your friend who already feels protective of you, I felt very involved in that because I wanted so badly for you to be treated the way that I know that you deserve to be treated. Because I think up until this point, you always kind of sold yourself short. And I always saw in you the things that were so great. Like, you are the kindest human. You are one of the most graceful people I know. And I wanted so badly for someone to love you the right way. I just also feel this way. I'm very passionate about my people, like extremely passionate. So we have that conversation in November, and there were red flags.
Yeah, I knew in my gut that I couldn't prove anything. And so I had convinced myself and other people, I convinced me that I was just, insecure.
Well, and the person in the relationship had gaslighted you insanely into believing those things.
Yeah. And, there was, now looking back, I'm like, Brittany, hello.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wanted to believe the good. One of my big flaws is that I care a lot what people think. And I was like, we already have this whole thing like planned. People have plane tickets here, like this whole, and the thing I struggled with the most, honestly, was that his family became my family.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, sharing this, I, want to do it as I can.
And they weren't involved in his poor decision.
Oh, absolutely.
No, they
not.
loved you so well, and they were incredible to you. And they were.
But I knew that losing the relationship meant losing them. And I think I was trying to protect everybody else.
Except
and
for yourself.
Didn't.
That's why you're so incredible, because you put everybody's needs before your own. But I also think you've learned in the last few years of like, no, it's okay for me to have boundaries. It's okay for me to ask hard questions. And I think that what could have really destroyed you has given you a strong backbone and a strong dependence on the Lord. So I want to talk graciously about specifics, because I think that it's important for other women who might feel that they're in this situation to know that the red flags and the things that they're seeing, you're not insane.
Right.
You're not crazy.
Yes. And I think sometimes like you can be insecure. And, but there are definite things that
a woman's intuition, baby.
Yes. That a lot of time, I remember my mom saying, when in doubt, get out. And I didn't. And that's also like with the red flags, like, do I guess say one of the red?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of them, the biggest one, is Friday nights with the work guys. Phone was turned off. And like now looking back, I'm like, but hello.
Duh.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. But in the moment, you're like, you're being conditioned to believe that you have no reason to not trust him.
Right.
Those words
because
are being
I
told
was
to
very, I trust. I was like, well, we've been friends for years. Like,
don't do this to me.
Right.
And he was adamantly telling you that you were crazy, that nothing was going on.
Yeah. And so that's probably the biggest one.
Yeah. So he would turn his phone off and you wouldn't be able to contact him on Friday nights because that was his guy night.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and I knew that the Lord was telling me, this isn't what you deserve, even if if he's not doing anything.
Sorry, our dog's going to bark in the background. Stop barking. No. Okay.
Real life.
Yeah.
Even if he's not doing anything, that's not what you deserve. Like, I had been praying over my husband, my future husband. My dad had prayed that for years. My mom. And, I just kept, the Lord was like, that is not right. This is, not for you.
No.
Something that I learned is that, the Lord's going to steer you in the way that he says you should go.
Yeah.
But he's also going to let you make your own decisions. And I chose not to listen to that. I chose to listen to my,
your heart,
my heart. And sometimes he'll let you fall flat on your face to teach you a lesson. And I did.
Yeah. And it was rough. So the Friday night behavior, that was really that. If I can pinpoint back into one conversation of when I remember that November conversation of like you telling me those kind of things were happening. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? The man said you can't contact him when? That boy better be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, you don't get to turn your phone off. You know what I mean? But also, I'm psycho. So, like, I just remember that being a trigger for me of like, oh, he's gaslighting you. First of all, which I hate that word, but like it literally, that was the behavior. It was like he was making you feel crazy when he was doing stuff that was not cohesive to a healthy relationship, right?
Because I asked people at his work. I taught, like, then I started, I was like, okay, maybe I should try to prove it. And then I probably was a little crazy. We were in premarital at the time, so I brought it up there.
You like point blank prompted and said, is there anything?
Oh, yes. I even knew,
who it was that you were questioning.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. So there was concerns with someone that he worked with, and you had brought that up to him, and he had told you what?
No, like they were just friends, just like one of the guys.
It just still makes my blood boil, but I'm getting over it. So you ask the questions, and that's the part that I really do want to give you praise for, that because like you were trying to figure it out. Like you as much as you may not have like immediately listened to the Lord when he was like, hey, this is an issue. Like you were trying to flesh it out and say like, I want to give you the opportunity to make this right because I love you and I want to be with you, but I need you to disclose what I'm asking you. And you gave that opportunity multiple times.
And I still don't know. I always like think, what would I have done if the truth would have been
presented to you?
Yeah, just told to me rather than me having to find the truth.
So, yeah, and that's really hard to go what ifs, but
I'm glad I needed it to happen the way that it did.
I agree, because I think you would have continued in that relationship because you are so graceful and you are so kind that like he would have made it seem like he was working on it, and you would have given him the benefit of the doubt, and it probably would have it 100% would have continued to repeat itself, in my opinion. So it all comes to this one moment, right? And I can remember very clearly where I was, but I want you to talk about the night that you found out that he was having an affair.
Well, it was 2 days before the wedding. I had just got my spray tan, so I was looking real nice. I had like no bra on, had the dress on, like the whole thing, no makeup. That's why to me it's like just comical. And it's because, it's 2 days before.
You're getting a spray tan, like,
ready for the wedding and all these things. And at that point, I was like, okay, like, I was kind of feeling a little better about it. Like, okay, this is what we're doing. And I've decided that this is what I'm choosing to do. And so, but it was Friday because we were going to get married on Sunday. So it was Friday night, and it was like his last hurrah with the guys before getting married. And he really didn't have a bachelor party. So I was like, oh, okay, like one more Friday night, like hurrah. And again, like I couldn't reach him. And so I was like, oh, well, it's because he's like, I'm not supposed to be doing, like, you're not supposed to be calling the person if they're on their bachelor party, right? So like, okay. And then by the grace of God, somebody decided it was finally time to step up and texted me and said, hey, I think you need to come pick him up. And this is where we are. And so, and I knew because there was so much prayer that kept going. And I don't know, I just had this feeling.
I was praying.
Overwhelming feeling. And I remember driving, I was like 10 and 2 the whole time. I was not crying, nothing. I just remember saying like out loud in my car, I was like, Lord, I know this is it. And I know that unfortunately I'm going to have to see something for myself. And I said, if I'm not supposed to get married Sunday, I need you to slam this door shut. Like, I keep asking for signs, but like, I think now I'm just,
I need you to pry this out of my hands.
I need you to, because I kept grasping for anything because I wanted it so badly. That's what I thought I was supposed to do. I wanted his family. I wanted to get married. And, all the things. And so I was like, I need this door slammed. It was slammed. So I pull into the parking lot and I see his truck, and he wasn't the only one there.
Mm-hmm. The person that you had suspected that he was cheating with was the person, in fact, that he was having an affair with.
Mm-hmm.
And they were outside together, correct?
Yeah, they were just sitting on the truck bed. And I remember I got out, I took my ring off, and I set it on the end of the truck. And I looked at her and I says, there's something I need to know before I get married Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And she just said, I think you need to talk to him.
It's just, there's so many things that I want to say. The fact that you didn't, first of all, just pull up and waylay that person is
That was
really
Jesus.
big. That was 100% Jesus. 100%
That was not
Jesus,
me, because
that could have gone way different.
I was cool, calm, and collected at the moment.
Yeah.
But then when I drove off, I was beside myself.
Of course.
Once I finally got to somewhere else, I went to one of my friend's house who lived down the street,
Mm-hmm.
and then I broke down.
Yeah.
But by the grace of God, I kept it cool and calm
in front of them.
Yes.
Yeah. So I remember the next morning getting a call at like 6 a.m. One of our friends was like blowing my phone up, and I was like, what? And I answered it, and she was like, you need to get to Brittany's mom's house right now.
Y'all thought I was joking.
I was like, y'all, this is so stupid. What is going on? But then the more I woke up, the more I was like, oh, like my worst fears are coming true for
Because
her.
you knew.
I freaking knew. And I was like, so help me God if this actually comes to light. And so it did. And I'm so thankful once again that it happened the way that it did, in that you were forced to see everything play out.
Me too.
And I think that was the Lord's grace, as wicked and awful as it was to watch you endure that. I think, like I said, you would have made an allowance for him had it not been, if it was just speculation forever, you would have continued in that because you were dedicated, right? And that's a characteristic that a lot of people can manipulate, and he did that. And so
and I also learned like that still vividly when people ask me like, what's your definition of friendship? That's the morning I think of.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all all showed
showed up
already.
I turned into a literal CIA agent because at the time he had also turned his phone off, and like you couldn't even have a conversation to say like this is done. Like he wouldn't even allow you that. And so I went to Psycho and got on to someone else's Snapchat. Saw the location. I didn't even have Snapchat. Saw the location of where he had last been. Called the hotel front desk and said, my fiance is in this room and he's not answering. Can you please patch me through? Ring, ring.
No one's surprised.
Ring, ring. And he answered, and I handed the phone directly to you. And that was like, it was wild. It was wild. It was like an outer body experience to like be like, well, we're actually literally all at your expense, unfortunately. But right now, sitting in this chair where we are today, like, praise God.
Praise God. There was a triumphant ending to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was one that only Jesus could do. So I remember after that, we just were all frantically calling vendors. I mean, it's at this point like 36 hours until your wedding day. No,
I remember
it was 24 hours. It was Saturday morning that we got the call because it happened Friday night. And so we had to cancel everything for the next day. Yeah. And calling people.
I remember we were all in Jenna's living room.
Yep.
I mean, and even like his sister came, like everybody rallied.
Oh, his family was phenomenal.
Amazing. Yeah. I just want to like,
they did the best that they could.
And they had everybody was blindsided.
Everyone was. Yeah.
And so yeah, and I still though kept wishing that like, okay, maybe it was just like a fluke thing.
Yeah.
But we didn't go through with the wedding, obviously.
Yeah. There was consideration at first. I think you guys left and had a conversation with your premarital counselor. And that was when like it really all came to light that this wasn't a fluke thing, that this had been an ongoing affair for a long time, which made it so much worse. And also better. In some way it was like, I'm not freaking crazy.
Right.
Like I've known that there was an issue. You lied to me.
I think that's why the night that I found out I was so calm, because I finally was like, I'm not crazy.
Yeah. I'm not crazy. And that's what I think I want other women to hear. Like your gut, the Lord uses like physical body feelings. Because I remember that conversation in November. You were a wreck. Like emotionally, physically, you were not your best self. And I remember just being like, you're under like spiritual warfare because your heart is telling you like something is wrong. But like in conversation, you're being told I love you. I'm dedicated to you. I would never do that, blah, blah, blah. But like in your heart, you knew something was up. And I want other women to hear that like, don't second guess yourself sometimes. Like push for the truth.
And like, I just want people to know you deserve more than that's such a cliche thing to say, but I've learned through the process of like grieving that situation that there's a big difference between self-confidence and self-worth. And I didn't have the self-worth. And I think that you search for your self-worth. If that person's going to love you back, that's what's going to give it to you. Yeah. And that's just not the case. That's what I wrestled with so much. I'm like, well, even if we don't get married, like I need you to choose me still because that's going to mean I'm enough. And that's what I struggled with for so long.
And it wasn't a clean cut
to know that.
Yeah, it wasn't a clean cut because you had spent, not only had you spent the last couple of years dating this person, but like your lives were very intertwined. Like you were so close to his family. You had known this person for years.
Yeah, our friends were friends.
Yes, like it was messy and it was difficult. And I think that there's humility in admitting like, yes, the worst possible thing happened. Yes, we called off our wedding. You were obedient in that. But like the months that followed were really freaking difficult for you. And he really tried to like woo you back. Never cutting off the ties to the other person, which is insane to me. But like, that's just that behavior. Like that's I don't want to say that narcissism, but like, I'm like, that's the narcissistic like way of, I love you. but like, I'm still going to have one foot out, you know? Yeah. And that went on for longer than I think any of us hoped that it would. But I also think your strength after the fact was wild. Like once you got through that grieving season,
I don't know what it was. There was just like one day I remember because I was living with Casey and Dan. I remember walking into their house. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And I never looked back after that. And I still don't know. Jesus. Like, I don't know what it was. It was just like, I'm done. I remember I told him, I said, I generally, and I still feel this way. I hope you're happy, but it does not include me. Like I can now, I should have known that a long time ago. I can choose. This is not, I don't get to decide my story. You know, I do. And
you were like a different human being from that day on. Yeah. It was like something like broke and it was like, oh my gosh, I don't need you. I'm going to be just fine. And my life has so much more ahead of it than, you know, and I think that's difficult for us in small town, little Bedford, Texas, is like, we're like, well, I know everybody here. Who the heck am I going to end up with if it's not this guy, you know? And little did we know, like the Lord had so much more in store for you. And I think it was that moment that you were like, oh, I don't need you.
Yeah. And I finally it finally clicked to me that his mistakes had nothing to do with me. And it had nothing to do with what I lacked or what I didn't lack. And I struggled with that for so long. Yeah. And it wasn't about that. But it took me a long time and I think other women that find themselves in that situation, that's probably what they struggle with is, you know, that
his sin is against the Lord, not against you. Because it was never about you, ever. It was about the inadequacy that he was feeling and then needing the validation from someone else. And I think at that moment, the day that you came in and said, I'm done, I remember like having a conversation with you shortly after. And it was like night and day. Like one day you were in the fetal position in the bed and we were like all taking turns making sure you were okay, honest to God. Yeah. And then the next day you were done and you were like, I'm over it. Like,
I'm like, let's
free from it.
Yeah. I was like, you know what what are my dreams that I wanted to do? And so I signed back up for college. It's just like night and day. Like
it's like a switch flipped. Yeah, it was incredible. But I think
those prayers.
Whoever we were praying, because there for a minute I was like, if I have to be around this fool again, if she gonna get back, no. But like I just knew you weren't it wasn't gonna stay. And I think I'm so thankful that the Lord was so near in that time and nearer than anyone else. Because for the longest time, you know, we were all so close and still are, but like we would all bear one another's burdens really well. But I think the Lord really needed you to get alone with him and be like, no, this is it. Like if it's me and you at the end of the day, am I enough, Jesus? Like,
I had never wrestled with the Lord as much as I did in that time.
Yeah.
But I needed that because even through my dad, I could, you know, I found comfort a lot of different ways, or I just didn't deal with it.
Yeah.
And I think that through dealing with the ended engagement, I was forced to also deal with my dad. And so it was really hard. Yeah. But I needed, like you said, like there's like a Brittany before that situation and there's a Brittany now.
And she's two totally different people.
Yeah.
But I think it was just the forced of like, we're going to strip away all the comfort. We're going to strip away all the outside validation. And like, we're going to get real raw with who we are. And you did that. And you have literally not been the same. And I'm so thankful for that. And I'm thankful for your ability to not look back on that season and only see the negative. I think you're so healthy now in your mindset and able to look back and see God's hand over it, which I think a lot of people in the midst of it are like, my life is never going to be better. I'm always going to feel hopeless. I'm always going to feel inadequate. But you're like living proof that that's not true.
Yeah.
There's hope.
Yeah, there's hope. And it still lingered. Like, it's crazy how much you don't realize, like, what that type of betrayal kind of does. You like, I grieved, you know, my relationship with him, but also with his family, but also like the hardest thing was trusting myself again, trusting that I can make good judgments with people.
Yeah.
I remember like I'd be walking in with people I'd been friends with forever. I'm like, do they really, are these really my friends? Because how was I able to be fooled so deeply?
That's an element I didn't even think about.
Yeah.
That what
but I
it does
think a lot
to
of people
questioning.
probably, you know, struggle with that. And it took me, I mean, even I had to cut ties with anything that had to do with people he knew or anything for me to truly heal finally. And I started going to counseling even when I met Josh. I mean, because it would seep into my relationship with him at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so it seeps into a lot of different things. But
if you don't heal from it, you will continue to allow it to take up space. I fully agree with that. And I've never thought about how much it must have made you question your own like ability to judge character. And I've never thought about that. But I'm so thankful that
But now we're on the other side.
Now we're on the other side, baby. And your life is so full and so beautiful. And you're married to the best addition of our lives. Like, okay, so let's talk about your first date with Josh. Because
that was the second date.
Okay, so you heal from all the trauma. Life gets great. You're having the time of your life, just being single and like enjoying yourself, going back on dates. Like, first of all, dating after you haven't dated for that long and out of high school and college.
And
like,
I did not want, when I met him, I was at a country concert with my friend Andrea and she's like, oh my gosh, it'd be so funny if you downloaded Bumble. And so we're just sitting there before the concert swiping. Just
because it's fun.
Yeah. And so swiped right because we were at a place in Irving and he's a firefighter in Irving and guess he was swiping on. He was
putting out fire.
Yeah. And so I just assumed, I'm just like, I'll meet up. This will be fun to like dip my toe back into, you know,
the dating scene.
Yeah. And
here we go.
Here we are.
Yeah. And you married your literal polar opposite. But hold on, I will get to that. I want to talk about your second date when you left your phone at the freaking aquarium
in the bathroom.
And Jenna, at the time, you were living with Jenna, right? And we couldn't find you.
Yeah.
And we were ready to kill this man. Like, we were like, we're about to go to Dateline.
Yeah.
Like, we're about to go to Dateline. But
because
you just lost your phone because you're forgetful.
He is and like now you know him.
Yeah.
Like, he is so intentional. And he was like, if we were going to be on it, I never saw his phone one time out of his pocket. Well, all of y'all knew I was on a date with some random. I had been on one other date with him.
Yeah.
So y'all were like, check in with me. Let me know how it goes.
Please turn your tracker on. Like,
yes. And so I was like, well, I can't be the one to pull my phone out texting, you know, if he's not. So I waited till I got to the bathroom and I set it down in the bathroom. And I was just so excited. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually going well. Like, we went to the aquarium. He actually asked me to then go to dinner afterwards.
He wants to hang out with me still.
It was not until the end of dinner that I realized, oh my gosh.
I left my phone.
People are probably looking for me right now.
Yeah. And we were.
And you were.
Yeah, we were. But we have since forgiven, and it wasn't anything he did.
No, it was
he was
me.
like so mad because he's like, your freaking friends probably kidnapped you. Like, so when did you end up getting your phone back?
Not till the next day
Because
they were
it was
closed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
But it was on that date that I knew he was it.
Seriously.
Yeah. Which is crazy to say because, like I said, I didn't trust myself. But yet here I am on the second date with some Yahoo from online.
Some random firefighter.
Yeah, but I remember it was the first date was long. Like we talked forever.
Yeah.
Me and him were both talkers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second day, like we went to the aquarium, it was fun. And we went to have dinner afterwards.
Yeah.
And he was sharing a lot of his story and baggage, if you will. And we, we're both almost 30 at that point. And he was kind of like in his blunt.
Oh, and he's an Enneagram 8. He's very straightforward.
He was like, look, do you see this going anywhere? Can you look past these things? Because let's not waste each other's time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to be like this blunt and direct. But I knew I was like, okay, this is it. You need to tell yours. And I was so embarrassed because still I was in the headspace of that was a reflection of you, what I was lacking. Yeah, of me. And I'll never forget, and I was so nervous because I wanted him to like me, and I was so awkward already. I was like, oh gosh, here's one more thing. I fist bumped him when he tried to kiss me.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you did not.
Yes, I did. And that was the first strike. So I was like, and here I am.
About to tell you.
Yeah.
I was just going to get married.
Made it past that in the parking lot of the aquarium. And
oh my God,
how am I going to tell him this part? Oh gosh. And so I remember telling him like a brief story about like I was going to get married before and like, blah, blah. And I will never forget his response. And he just looked at me and he was like, I wish I could have a chance to see him and I would just say thank you. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, he didn't see the goodness in you, but now I get to. And I know.
Oh my God.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm done.
Where do I sign? Like, yes, I will marry you.
Yeah.
That's
and
incredible.
So.
And he's so opposite from you, but also I think his strengths are your weaknesses. Your strengths are his weaknesses. Him and I have very similar personality types in that we just say exactly what's on our mind at all times. And
he's the strength to my gentle.
Yes.
But
he needs you too to soften him a little bit. Yeah. But he's been, because we were all very protective at first.
Yes.
Like I was like, who do you think you are to date this girl that's incredible? And if you mess her up, like I promise you, I didn't get to beat the last guy up, but I will.
Yeah.
But we were so protective and he just showed up with like, these are my intentions. This is who I am. Like, I'll answer any question. And I just loved that. So it was so honorable because I think at that point also he knew what he was up against. And we're an intense group of people.
Y'all scared him a little bit and he doesn't get scared.
Well, assy shit. No, I'm just kidding. But like, it's a lot. And you're not just, when you marry into a friend group like ours, like you're not just marrying that person. You really are committing to like that friend group. And we are more like chosen family than we are friends. And so it was very intimidating, I'm sure at first. But he just showed up and was 100% himself. And we had a lot of questions. And, there was some stuff that we didn't always agree with at first. And he pushed past that. And now it's like, I'm so thankful that it's a story that only the Lord could have written for you. And Josh has been so good and so strong to like stand in the gap when you do have moments of like, hey, I've been through a whole life's worth of trauma. And I need someone to like look at me and tell me that I'm okay. Wouldn't you agree that he does that for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he has like, he loves me so well. But I think my favorite thing is that he helped me learn how to love me again.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, so sweet. And that's more of a gift probably than anything because don't cry.
Sorry. I didn't cry through any of the other stuff.
No, but I think that's probably why it's emotional is because that was such a thing of like, that really was what was hindering you. All the stuff that happened in your past, like those are things that were out of your control, but like your view of self was something that really needed to get right so that you could move on, and he helped you with that.
Yeah, because something I was afraid of was becoming a mom after that, because I was like, if I have a girl or even if I have a boy, like, I want to be the mom that loves herself and can pour, like, if I can't love me, how am I going to pour into, you know? Yeah. And
you do it with so much ease now. And you have the most beautiful baby. And shameless plug. He's always smiled at me, okay? He
does.
Loves me. Favorite. He freaking loves Aunt Jay, and I will wear that title.
Kicked for only you.
On your belly, literally. And then, like, when he was, like, fresh out the womb, he was, like, Googling at me, and oh my God, I'm obsessed with him. He's so beautiful. It looks like a Cabbage Patch baby. He's so perfect. Like, he literally just looks like his little dimples and his pale, and I just want to bite his cheeks. But you became a mom. Like, you guys got married, and how soon after you were married did you get pregnant?
We were married for a year.
Okay.
And then got pregnant.
And that was challenging in and of itself at first.
Yeah.
You had some scares.
Mm-hmm.
How did you handle that?
Not well. I really learned a lot through that, though. I learned that I have no control, because I think I've never been in that vulnerable of, being pregnant, like, you literally have no control.
None. Which is so wild.
And it was scary, but I had to find a place in myself of where I wasn't scared of having no control, because I'm a control type A person.
Same.
And, but it was good. It made it, like, super sweet when he was finally here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was challenging.
It
was scary because I hemorrhaged at work.
Yeah.
And so we thought we had lost him, but we didn't. And so it was scary, but again, the Lord proved his faithfulness in that.
I feel like we talk about this a lot, but I feel like the Lord loves to show up in big ways for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he does that for a lot of people, but I think it's always been like, he gives big and he takes away big, is what Jenna said recently. And I think that's very true. Like, you call out to the Lord, and I can just imagine him running so fast to be by your side. And he's done that so much over the last 10 years in your life. And it's been a gift to, and an encouragement to my faith, to watch you overcome a lot of the things that there's no rhyme or reason as to why you did, and watching you be a mom has been one of my favorite things, because I think the Lord has once again drawn you into dependence on him, and then, like, given you this sweet, sweet baby that you're so connected with.
Yeah. And I struggled at first, but I couldn't do it without y'all. The first couple of months were rough.
And they're rough for everyone.
Yeah. And I think that's what I just was like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one. Like, I'm not going to be honest with anyone, because this is horrible.
Oh.
Because he was colicky. He had the tuberculosis. He had all the things. But yeah, no, it's been so, I need it. Like, I didn't need that, but that challenge of like proving to myself, no, you're his advocate.
And you did such a good job at it. You just needed to get your bearings. And that goes back to, I think, just your community as a mom. Like,
that's what I was going to say. That's, if I had any advice for someone about to have a baby, find that community.
Yes.
And I feel so fortunate that.
Me too. And there's times where even like the older your kids get, where you need to look at someone and go, I'm not insane, right? Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm not screwing them up, or like, what do I do here? Because like, no one gives you a manual, and they just give you this child to keep alive and sustain. And you're like, what the heck? Like, I was just a 21-year-old. Like, what do you mean? So I think,
or 30 over.
Yeah, right. But I think also, like, it's so important to have those people, because there are going to be moments where you have to tap out. And like, I remember so clearly you were having a really hard day, and Josh had told you, like, call someone.
Yep.
Like, call someone.
He's like, I don't know what to do with you. You need to call someone.
But that's postpartum. Like, that's postpartum. And like, you're sleep deprived, and you haven't eaten, and you're like worried about this child. And Caden at the beginning was really struggling with torticollis, which is where they get stuck in the birth canal, right?
Explain that. Well, that's what caused his, but it's this big part of your neck. It gets tweaked, so he couldn't turn.
Yeah.
And his was because he was stuck in the birth canal.
Yeah. And it was really challenging at first, and it was scary. And this is your first time mom, and and
my husband was gone for 24 hours.
Oh yeah, being a firefighter wife.
But now I feel like it's just, so, I mean, now it's great.
Easy and good.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I've been blessed with, so far, a really easy, happy baby who's almost 1.
I can't believe that he's almost 1. I truly can't wrap my brain around that.
But yeah.
But I think your story is so important because there's so many moments where you could have really given up and thrown in the towel, not only on your faith, but on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the woman that is standing here today is built up of the moments that you didn't give up.
Absolutely. I don't think I'd be the type of friend or wife or mom that I am now if I didn't walk through those things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But you know, I wouldn't take it back.
No. One thing I want you to speak on, and then we'll probably wrap up soon, but there was a time where vulnerability was not something that you loved. And I feel like the Lord used all these things to show you, like, you have to find the people you trust, and then you have to tell them everything.
Mm-hmm.
You got to
the
tell
2%.
them everything. 2%. Wait, talk about that.
Jennie Allen says that, you know, you have your people that you just tell things to, but then you have your core people that you tell them the last 2%. You know, me and my husband got in an argument, and the 2% would be, but I said this, that went too far.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, got to share the last 2% of it.
Yeah. And I think that has pushed all of us to being better friends and to being more consistent, and to, even when it's like, oh, I really don't want to talk about this, but like, hey, I need to ask you this question. And then it's a whole snowball of a conversation. Like, there's been so many moments where all of us have had to cross that pain line and said, hey, I can see that you're struggling, and I want to know what's really going on in the heart of it. And I think that each challenge that you've been through, you have grown in that vulnerability so much more. And it's been so beautiful to watch you be like, no, this is who I am. And like, take it or leave it, all of it.
Yeah, I used to be so ashamed of my story. Even like, for some reason, my dad, like I just didn't want to share that. And it's not even really I love talking about my dad.
Yeah.
And then talking about the other situation. But the amount of people that won without even sharing this story. I mean, people knew that you were supposed to get married, and then all of a sudden you didn't. But I've had so many people who have lost their parents, or people who are supposed to be getting married and don't think that they should reach out to me.
Yeah.
And it's those little conversations that I'm like, this is why I need to be vulnerable, because if I'm not, then, you know,
God doesn't get to use that story.
Right.
And people are better because of it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a better human because of the things that you allowed us to walk through with you. Like, it taught me things about my own self and about my own faith, and that I didn't know that I needed until I had to go through the mud with you, you know? And I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for the vulnerability. And I just am so proud of you. Like, if you want to hear anything, hear that. I'm proud of you. I am, because you're an incredible woman.
Truly, like, community is the biggest thing. All of those things I couldn't have gotten through without y'all. And it's because of y'all's vulnerability. I mean, there's been so many times that I've shown up on y'all's floor and it was you on the other end, but I wouldn't have felt, you know, it's like back and forth that you have to be.
No, I know exactly what moment you're talking about.
Yeah. I've had, you know, people ask me, how do you make such good friends that, like, to that depth? And that's really the key. You have to be vulnerable if you want people to be vulnerable with you back.
Yeah.
And so it's taken me a long time to get, sometimes you have to reel it out of me, but
once we're there, we're there. And that's just a matter of, you know, growing in our understanding of people don't leave us when they love us, you know, and that I struggle with that. And, you know, abandonment issues when you lose your dad, or when you go through really rough relationships, like, it's easy to fall back into that. But I think it's been so beneficial for all of us to just show up and be like, hey, here's my 2%. Here's what I really don't want to talk about, and I need you to hold me accountable for it, and I need you to ask me these questions, because I'm not going to come tell you on my own. Like, I need you. And I think it's been such a gift to watch God use all the vulnerability to bring us to the place we're at now. And I'm so proud. And I'm so thankful for Josh, and I'm so thankful for Kaden, And I'm so thankful that you were willing to share this story. And I hope that everyone leaves feeling as encouraged as I do every time I get to hang out with you. So I love you.
Love you.
Thank you so much.
This is fun.
Yes. We'll do it again. Okay. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, save, all the things. I don't even know what to do, but I love you. Goodbye.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to my mom's podcast, Let's Just Be Real. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, follow, rate, and review so you don't miss any of these honest and amazing stories. For all the behind-the-scenes content, go follow my mom at Jordyn Swingle on Instagram. And as always, let's just be real.